June 6, 1944, at RAF Tarrant Rushton in Dorset. 30 Halifax bombers taxied into position on the runway, each towing a strange and astonishing load. Behind every bomber trailed a huge wooden aircraft with a wingspan of 110 feet, a fuselage the size of a railway carriage, and a 17,000-pound tank bolted inside its belly. What the British were about to attempt had never been done before. They were going to fly tanks across the English Channel, release them over occupied France, and land them in fields behind enemy lines, ready for combat within minutes. No nation had ever accomplished such a feat. The aircraft that made it possible was the General Aircraft GAL-49 Hamilcar, the largest glider the Allies ever built, and the only aircraft specifically designed to carry a tank into battle. The need for such a machine came from a harsh reality. Airborne troops dropped by parachute were lightly armed infantry. They could seize objectives, but if German armored units counterattacked, they had little that could stop them. Earlier raids had shown both the daring and the vulnerability of paratroopers operating without heavy weapons. For the coming invasion of Europe, airborne forces would need to hold ground for hours or even days against determined counterattacks. Without tanks or powerful anti-tank guns, they risked being overwhelmed. Existing gliders could carry soldiers, jeeps, or light artillery, but nothing approaching the weight of a tank. The gap between what airborne troops needed and what aircraft could deliver seemed impossible to bridge. In late 1940, the Air Ministry issued a specification calling for a glider capable of carrying a tank. Designers at General Aircraft Limited approached the challenge by building an aircraft around its cargo. The result was a high-wing monoplane made largely of wood, with the cockpit perched high above a vast cargo bay. The bay was just wide enough to fit a Tetrarch light tank with only inches to spare. The most ingenious feature was the nose, which hinged open to the side like a giant door. To load the glider, ground crews lowered the fuselage by deflating the landing gear struts, allowing the tank to drive straight inside. Tank crews remained inside their vehicles during flight, secured by harnesses with exhaust vented outside. After landing, the pilot lowered the fuselage again, the tank released its restraints, and as it rolled forward, its weight triggered a mechanism that swung the nose open automatically. Within seconds, the tank could drive directly into combat. Development and production were slow and difficult, involving numerous contractors and complex coordination. By the time of the Normandy invasion, only about 80 Hamilcars existed, yet they were ready for their historic mission. On the evening of D-Day, Hamilcars carried Tetrarch tanks of the British airborne forces to landing zones north of Ranville. It was the first time tanks had been delivered by air directly into battle. Losses and accidents occurred, including gliders destroyed in flight and collisions on landing, but enough arrived to reinforce the airborne troops. Their presence helped deter German armored counterattacks and provided desperately needed firepower. Later operations revealed both the strengths and limitations of the Hamilcar. In the Netherlands, during Operation Market Garden, several gliders crash-landed on soft ground and overturned, causing casualties among pilots and crews. In March 1945, during the massive Rhine crossing known as Operation Varsity, Hamilcars again delivered heavy weapons and light tanks under intense anti-aircraft fire. Some were destroyed, others damaged, yet the operation succeeded in placing armored support alongside airborne troops on the battlefield. No other nation fielded a glider that matched the Hamilcar's ability to deliver a tank using a single tow aircraft. German heavy gliders were larger but required dangerous multi-aircraft towing arrangements, while American designs could not carry comparable loads. The men who flew these missions belonged to the Glider Pilot Regiment, a unit that suffered extremely high casualty rates. They were trained soldiers as well as pilots, expected to fight on the ground after landing. After the war, the Hamilcar quickly became obsolete. Its wooden structure deteriorated in peacetime conditions, and most were scrapped within a few years. None survive intact today, though fragments remain in museums as reminders of an extraordinary achievement. On that June day in 1944, when a wooden aircraft touched down in a Norman field and a tank rolled out to join the battle, it demonstrated a unique solution to one of warfare's toughest problems, delivering armored power behind enemy lines from the air. The Hamilcar was rare, fragile, and costly, but it accomplished something no other machine could, and the men who flew it paid a heavy price to make it possible.